I wanted to ask you, did you see that quote from Charles Barkley directed towards KD where he said he is sensitive? It's weird. I said to you for 3 or 4 years now, I'm not sure why he reacted to it again. I don't care where it goes. He's a great, great player. I think he's a good guy too. He's sensitive and I'm not worried about it. Did you see that altercation between those two guys?
Yeah, I've always thought, I've got kids, so some people are just more sensitive. Like when I was in my 20s, like I just didn't get it. I was kind of a relentless, full steam ahead. Then you have kids and you realize I got 6, 2 biological, 4 steps. Some kids are more sensitive. Aaron Rodgers is really sensitive to criticism. Kyler Murray and his people are. Kevin Durant is. It's okay. He's in touch with who he is. I have a soft spot for Kevin Durant. I think he is the only player in the league. Take centers out. If you had a one-on-one tournament in the history of the league, I think Durant's the only person that would beat LeBron and Michael Jordan. I think he can put it on the deck. Take centers out. I don't want to see Kareem against Ray Allen or something. It's insane. But if you're talking like, Dirk Nowitzki, Durant, Giannis, or the high end, I think Kevin's one of the greatest scorers. He's also a willing defender. I think he's really smart, but he's a different cat. His upbringing, he's just different. And it's like, I'm going to accept that. Everybody comes from different backgrounds. And Barkley's, listen, I think about this all the time. If I was a pro basketball player and literally one of the greatest players ever was ripping me on television and all my friends are DMing me, like Adam Silver said a year ago, he goes, my players are miserable. So I'm old. I don't care, right? Like, and I don't sit on the internet, but I didn't generationally, Jason, grow up with a phone. I'm not on it all the time. I mean, Friday, when I leave work till Sunday, I'm not even on my phone. I got my staff said I'm not even close to it. Kevin grew up in the iPhone generation. It's a magnet. My kid's eyes are on it all the time. And he gets a little beat up by it. So I'm sympathetic. He is sensitive. But I'm going to embrace that. I would love to see him win in Phoenix. I really would love it. I think it would be it would validate a lot of, because listen, we both knew this. When he left Golden State, it was a really bad career decision. I've compared it to Mahomes saying, I've got a buddy, I'm going to go to the Jets. No, don't do that. Don't. It was the same thing. But in basketball, we tend to give the star a little bit more of a mobility edge. The shoe sales, it's more of an individual game. There's not the team construct. LeBron leaves. Of course he does. Mahomes leaves, you're like, why? So I find myself, I'm not supposed to root, but I find myself sort of rooting for Kevin to succeed.
I'm rooting for him too. I think it's such low-hanging fruit to be like, he only won with Steph, therefore he's not a real champion. Like, to me, Kevin Durant's always been a phenomenal basketball player who just got partnered with 2 extremely volatile point guards. Russell Westbrook on the floor, Kyrie Irving off the floor. That ended up being kind of what submarined a lot of his success.
Great point.
Yeah, and I am rooting for him to have that legitimizing title, just like I rooted for it with Steph in last year's playoff run, because a lot of people undercut some of his success because of Kevin Durant, which I thought was ridiculous. KD went after the whole concept of these older players being disrespectful. And you know what's so interesting to me about that, Colin, is like usually there's a camaraderie with the players. Like, our job, by virtue of our need to be authentic, demands that we criticize. That is part of what we have to do. But what's interesting is players in the league are typically pretty tight-knit with criticism. For instance, Russell Westbrook was objectively awful with the Lakers for 1.5 years. You couldn't find a player in the league who would throw him under the bus. Every time someone would interview them and they'd be like, what do you think about Russ with the Lakers? Oh, Russ is a former MVP. He's a Hall of Famer. Love that guy. I'm rooting for him. He's like, no one would criticize, because like there's this tight-knit like respect among the players where, generally speaking, they speak positively of each other in a way that the media has a little bit more free reign to be critical. That's what's so weird with this older generation, and I'm so glad Kevin Durant's going at it. It is bizarre, the sheer amount of these older players that are being outwardly disrespectful of these players. They do not feel the same level of obligation to kind of keep that tight-knit, like kind of mutual respect. And I do find that super interesting. Do you buy Kevin Durant when he says that he doesn't care about legacy anymore?
No, he cares. Everybody cares. I mean, legacy's a lot of vanity, but and I don't spend a lot of time on it, but I don't want to end my career poorly, right? I want to end it having some control, being part of the volume when a network kicks me off the air because my hair is even grayer than this. So I think everybody, as you age, you think about that stuff. And, Brady at the end wanted to have more control, wanted to end it. So he picked a team with a bunch of good receivers and an offensive coach. I mean, he knew what he was doing. Tom Brady figured out, listen, I can't carry the load anymore. I'm going to go to a team with a bunch of really good receivers in Tampa, really good tight ends, bring Antonio Brown and Gronk, and I'm not going to have to lift as much. Like Matt Stafford got old. Oh, I got McVay as a coach. Oh, I've got Cooper Kupp. Oh, I think, as you age, you still have it. You just don't have it 48 minutes a game as an NBA player or 17 games relentless as a quarterback. So I think Kevin is aware of his legacy, and his legacy is going to be a better version of Dirk Nowitzki. I mean, to me, he's going to be a more well-rounded version of Dirk Nowitzki, a more lethal version with more titles, and that's a pretty good spot. Dirk's an all-timer. He's going to be a better version of that, sort of like Michael's a better version of Kobe. It's a pretty good space to be. That's an all-timer.
Yeah, I buy him to a certain extent. Like, I do think he cares about legacy at least a little bit. But I do believe him that I think he's just, the way I would describe it is similar to what we go through as members of the media. You obviously with a ton more experience. But you know how, like, I'm not sure what it was like for you when you first got into the business, because I know there wasn't social media, but like, obviously I came in right with the Twitter trolls and the relentless social media harassment. So I've got lots of people that would DM me and talk shit and say all these awful things. And what's funny is it pretty quickly, within about a year, I realized there's a significant segment that you will never satisfy. Like, you're just, right. They're going to hate you no matter what you say, and you can never win. So just focus on doing your job and look at the results. There's way more people who support you than don't. And I think Kevin Durant has kind of come to a similar realization. I think he realizes now that there is a segment of people that no matter what he does, no matter where he wins, no matter how much he succeeds on the basketball court, they'll call him a cupcake, and they'll say that he doesn't defend, and they'll say that he jumped on Steph's bandwagon. I think Kevin Durant has just come to terms with the fact that he's never going to be able to satisfy everybody. And I think that I really do believe that he has come to the other side of things where he's like, I'm just going to play the best I can, and I'm going to win as much as I can, and whatever happens in terms of the legacy is clearly outside of my control, so I'm at peace with that. I do think he cares about his legacy, but I think he's at peace with the fact that he can't control it.
Yeah, and I think, the most criticized player in the NBA is LeBron James. I always said this about Barack Obama. You didn't have to agree with his policies. You can't get worked up because once he wore a beige suit. He has a beautiful family, smart guy. If that really ruins your day, fuck out of here. You're just a miserable person. Like, that's just not good enough, right? You don't have to like his policies, but he wasn't weaponizing social media. So, they're just, I think, I always figure we forgot about Joe Montana very quickly. And it went from, Montana was the GOAT. Brady beats Atlanta. We've never talked Joe Montana since. It went like Brady to Mahomes. And Joe Montana's out there, hey, I got 4, right? But I think Joe Montana is so happy in his personal life. If you ever see him around his wife, they're like teenagers, cuddly, kissy. They're the cutest couple. And I think the happier you are in your personal life, none of that stuff matters. Joe knows who he is. We literally went from Brady, we talked Rodgers, Mahomes. It is like Joe Montana never played. It's insane. And I think as Kevin ages, I think young people tend to think they've got it made. They're not married, no kids. They're happy in their 20s. Research shows you get happier as you age because there's less societal pressure. You kind of prune your tree. You don't really care who cares about you. I think as Kevin has aged, this is very human. He's more comfortable with who he is, and it's been clearly defined who he is. He is, I would say this, he's one of the 10 best basketball players I've ever seen. And I've been watching since Wilt in 1972-73. He's one of the 10 best basketball players on his good nights I've ever seen. Injuries have not helped him in the last 4 or 5 years. He is brittle now, so it's hard to put him in that top 5 or 6. He's probably, I would say, top 12. But he's kind of a one-on-one. I mean, he's unique. I mean, Mark Few coached Gonzaga. He coached on those Olympic teams. And I think I've told this story. I was talking to him one time about what it's like. And I said, anybody surprise you? He said, even among great players, Kevin Durant's ridiculous. Like, even among all the great players, they got to work to get their shot. Durant just gets a great shot. Not a good one, a great one against our greatest players every time down the floor. He's like, Colin, I've seen a lot of basketball. There's just nothing like Kevin Durant.
Yeah, the putting him all-time list gets so convoluted by centers. Yeah. Because they're just,
I take them out almost, yeah.
Me too. I keep a completely separate list. It's like, just here's all the best perimeter players of all time. And I think Kevin Durant is clearly one of the 10 best perimeter players of all time. It's just, how do you even compare him to someone like Wilt? It's a completely different sport. I think you make an interesting point, though. It's really this simple. If you become secure in who you are and what you've accomplished, then you're never going to allow some stranger to convince you you're something less than that. And again, I do believe that Kevin Durant, in a previous version of himself, 5-7 years ago, I think he did buy into that stuff a little too much, and he let the noise get to him a little bit. But I do believe him that he's made a little bit of a transition into a new phase where he's more kind of at peace with the fact that he can't control that stuff.